Hello everybody, King Nelly Reviews here, and today we're going to be talking about Sengatsu's own Kiriyama Rei. Kiriyama Rei is one of my favorite main characters of all time, and there's many experiences he's been through that makes him such a deep character. Chapter 10 of the series takes a deep dive into Rei's childhood spent with the Kouda family. They're the family that unofficially adopted him after his parents died. What made his experience with them so endearing is how the honest intentions behind Rei's actions led to a very negative effect on the entire family. Over time, it became very complicated and left everyone involved with deep emotional scars. In this video, I'll be breaking down the dynamics between Rei and the Kouda family as shown in Chapter 10, as well as discuss the main conflicts that caused the family to spiral downwards. If you end up liking the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to support me in making these videos. Now, enough talking, let's break down some backstories. Everybody get your fucking hands up. Rei first met Mr. Kouda through shogi. His biological father loved the game, and Rei got good at it so he can have some bonding time with his father. I'll get into the specifics in a future video, but after Rei's family ended up dying in a car accident due to a drunk driver, he was taken in by Mr. Kouda. The Kouda family was a shogi family, and he invited Rei to join them, believing he would continue to learn shogi under him and his two children. Coming to a new home, Rei had two new siblings, a new mother, and a new father. Just like any other adopted child, being seen as part of the family takes a lot of getting used to, especially if they were a complete stranger not too long ago. The chapter starts off with Kyoko, his older adopted sister, physically attacking him and throwing insults at him when she lost to him in a shogi match. This can be seen as her trying to put him in his place, since it's clear she doesn't respect him and also doesn't want him taking the spotlight away from them, the real kids of the Kouda family. Rei was seen and treated by his new siblings as a threat to their new home, and his skill level in shogi was very high, and since he was originally a stranger to them, they probably felt like he didn't deserve to have their father's attention. Even with her father getting angry at her aggressiveness, we still see Kyoko attack Rei again for simply looking at her through the window. We can already see the clear strain Rei is causing to this family for simply being good at shogi while also not being a real son to Mr. Kouda and not being a real sibling to Ayumu and Kyoko. This situation Rei is put in is very hard on him mentally because he's stuck with no practical options to make everyone happy. His success at shogi makes his siblings fearful because they don't see him as part of the family. If he was their real brother at birth and was also good at shogi, they will most likely have no problems with his skill level or him gaining attention from their father. If he was bad at shogi, they might accept him through pity, but then he would disappoint Mr. Kouda, who had such high hopes for him, he even took him into his family just to foster his talent for the game. As time goes on, Kyoko eventually hears Rei call Mr. Kouda father and gets shocked. She says Rei isn't even officially adopted into the family, and he shouldn't be allowed to call her father his father when he's just a student. Mr. Kouda, however, quickly comes to Rei's defense and covers for him. He said he asked Rei to call him father, then quickly switches the topic to praise Rei for his recent achievement in the shogi world. It's obvious to Kyoko and Ayumu that the love Mr. Kouda has for Rei has grown far more than they expected, and they definitely were not happy about it. Kyoko and Ayumu are left with hurt faces seeing this kid they just knew recently get the privilege to refer to their father as his father, while also getting praised for his shogi ability far more than they do. We can see that there are probably some signs of neglect Ayumu and Kyoko feel, and they probably blame Rei for stealing any potential praise or shine they would have gotten from their father if he wasn't there instead. We can see the problems slowly stack up. Rei is being seen as a thief who entered their family and is stealing their father's attention from his children who deserve it more. Umino explains it even more by reminding the audience the kind of family Mr. Kouda built, a shogi family. It says, father really loved shogi, for better or for worse. Everything was centered around shogi, so those who loved them had to become strong. This quote is important because it shows the main root of all these problems, shogi. It wasn't necessarily Rei that was heavily straining the family, but the environment Mr. Kouda promoted in his household. Rei, someone who works very hard at shogi, will naturally prosper in an environment like that, whereas the other kids who also work hard but just not as much as Rei will naturally lose to him. This, however, does not really matter in the grand scheme of things, since having a sibling being better at something than you are isn't really a big deal. But when you're placed in an environment where the thing that they're better at than you is all that matters to your father, then there's naturally going to be some heavy conflict. A normal father will shower you with lots of love and attention regardless of your shogi skill, but in a shogi family, being good at shogi and getting lots of love is heavily correlated. They all knew this and worked hard at shogi because of it, but Rei being a stranger and being the one to win their father's attention the most caused the family to get swallowed up by jealousy, neglect, and just helplessness. The first to be affected was said to be Ayumu. After Rei surpassed him in shogi, Ayumu's grades started slipping and he entered depression. He quit shogi, and it's implied that Rei goes to Mr. Kouda out of concern of Ayumu, but Mr. Kouda says Ayumu is a lost cause if he needs someone to persuade him to continue shogi. The road for shogi is long and tough, so Mr. Kouda gave up on Ayumu becoming a shogi player. Remember, Ayumu's depression happened solely because Rei got better than him at shogi. Instead of seeing Rei as a healthy competition to push himself, similar to how he probably is seeing Kyoko, his older sister, who was also better at him at shogi, he instead made Rei into an existence that he didn't even think of surpassing. Once he lost, he gave up on himself and just fell into helplessness. Next was Kyoko. She was forced to quit by Mr. Kouda because she was not able to beat Rei anymore despite being 4 years older than him. Even at the beginning levels of competitive shogi, there will be many people better than Rei, and if she can't beat him at her age, then she should just find something else to do. Kyoko is left in tears because she understands what it means for you to be told to quit shogi while in the shogi family. You simply weren't good enough and would never have your shogi loving father's complete love. The last one standing was Rei. We had some outsiders describe the situation from their point of view, and the way they worded their thoughts perfectly shows how complicated and messed up the whole situation looked like. They said, in the end, the only one left standing is someone else's child? That's Kiriyama's son, isn't it? So he went out of his way to train his rival's son, and his children became his prey? How ironic. The quote highlights the main problem that everybody had with Rei. It wasn't only that he was good at shogi and they were jealous or didn't like it, that's part of it. But the main thing was simple. He wasn't Mr. Kouda's biological child. No matter how much work and effort Rei put into the family, no matter how many chores he did, no matter how nice he was, no matter how hard he studied shogi, he would never be accepted or approved of by the others simply because he wasn't born into the Kouda family. So what should Rei do here? He can't change the circumstances of his birth, and he's doing many things most middle school kids don't even do to improve himself and be liked more, but all his efforts just makes things worse. Because the better he is as a person and at shogi, the more antagonistic his siblings and outsiders view him. He truly is trapped with no way out. After quitting shogi, Ayumu trapped himself in his room, playing video games, and Kyoko spent all her time playing outside. Rei comments that the time they all spent together as a shogi family was gone. He ended up immersing himself into shogi to run away from these problems, and eventually he ended up third dan, one step away from becoming a shogi pro. Rei ends up realizing slowly that his presence in the family is causing everyone strain. We go back to the present day while he reminisces about his childhood, and the TV turns on and talks about a cuckoo bird, which becomes an important parallel to Rei. The cuckoo bird is said to invade other birds' nests, throw away the eggs of the mother's real kids, and put their own eggs in there instead of the mother to raise. The mother ends up raising and feeding the kids of the bird that murdered her children. Even when the baby bird from a different species ends up getting bigger than the mother, it still keeps feeding it regardless, even though to an outsider, that's definitely not her kids. Rei, remembering the heavy strain he's causing not just Kyoko and Ayumu, but the whole family dynamic in general, he sees himself as that devilish bird that comes in and ruins on his families. He then decides that in order to protect them, he must leave them. He says he's consuming them all, and if he doesn't leave as soon as he can, they might reach a point of no return. He decides to drop out of school since he is already committed to becoming a professional shogi player. He wants to go pro so he can live independently and not hurt the Koudas anymore. This right here is why I love Rei so much. He has every right to stay in the family since he has done nothing wrong, but he still decides to take a step back simply because his innocent and honest presence brought all of their insecurities out and they just couldn't handle their own weaknesses. As Rei fixes his sweater, he thanks Mr. Kouda for being a good father to him and believes that if he really was a bird, he could fly away oblivious to the agonizing torment he currently feels. Again, Rei is such an amazing character, and I absolutely love how Umino set this up. To feel this much pain due to circumstances outside of his control and still showing the family that didn't treat him the best they could have is something truly worthy of my respect. Now, the big question is that is Rei truly a cuckoo bird that came to destroy the Kouda family? The answer is an easy no. The Kouda family was already on a downward spiral. The shogi environment set by Mr. Kouda would still force and strain Kyoko and Ayumu even without Rei there. What Rei's presence did was speed up the process of their eventual collapse. As shown earlier, Kyoko wasn't able to beat Rei despite being 4 years older, and she was at the age where she'd be going against some shogi players who would be way better than Rei. Rei was used as a reference point for Mr. Kouda to show that Kyoko wouldn't make it in the shogi world, and this led him to tell Kyoko to quit. Because of how this played out, Kyoko ended up blaming Rei when in actuality, whether Rei was there or not, doesn't change the fact that she wouldn't succeed in the shogi world. She simply wasn't talented enough to go professional, and Rei helped everyone see that sooner than they were supposed to. But because he made them see it sooner, he was blamed and treated horribly for their own weakness. The same thing applies for Ayumu. Rei getting better than him was all it took for him to give up. Throughout the story, we've seen many shogi players face far harsher conditions in their lives than Ayumu did. So if he can mentally handle having to start over and work on becoming better than Rei, he simply wasn't built for that shogi life. It was also heavily implied that Kyoko was far better at shogi than Ayumu, and she wasn't good enough to go pro, so Ayumu, by common sense, he would also not be good enough as well. Rei had nothing to do with the downfall of the shogi lives of Ayumu and Kyoko. It was inevitable. They would have eventually realized on their own that a life of shogi was simply too hard for them. If anything, having someone like Rei as a practice partner probably made their shogi skills a little better than it would have been if he wasn't there, but as we all know, it still wasn't enough. So as readers, we see the state of the Kouda family and understand that Rei was not really at fault for their inevitable downfall, yet he still takes responsibility as if he was the reason why they collapsed. Seeing such a young kid take accountability for something he had no control over and still love this family despite how he was treated really hit me hard. Rei is such a good kid. He didn't deserve any of this. These events will continue to plague Rei as the story goes on, and the bonds he had with the Kouda family is still as complicated as ever. The reoccurring conflict from the position Rei is as a pseudo-member of the Kouda family plays a big role in the many hurdles and obstacles he has to go through throughout the story. Umino did a fantastic job of setting up this conflict, and it led to big payoff in the future, but that's for a different video. Thank you all for watching so far, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to support me and making more content. Thanks again, and I'll catch you later. Peace.